Awesome. Hi, everyone. How's it going? You enjoy your coffee break? I think we enjoyed it so much that we just stayed out a little bit longer in true INSEAD fashion, which is great. And in true INSEAD fashion, I think the way I thought about this talk kept evolving. In fact, we just had a conversation that I will bring up as part of this. I think leadership is one of those things that every time you think you've figured it out, things change. And if you look at the last 6 years, let's say from 2020 till now, we have probably seen more than 50 years of change, arguably, compressed in about a 6-year time frame. I don't know how many of you remember this, but March 2020 is when most countries went into lockdown because of COVID. And I think it was probably November 2022 is when ChatGPT first released. Just take a minute to realize that. How many people remember the song Lady Marmalade? All right. That song came out 25 years ago. Think about change and you start to put references between how you're experiencing change and how quickly things have happened. It's a really, really crazy time. So when I think about change and I think about the world that we live in today, I personally like to really, really simplify things. And the way I do it, I have little kids, is I try to think of an analogy. What does it really feel like? What are we living through today? So I assume most of you can remember being teenagers. And as teenagers, oftentimes we thought of or did throw great parties, and especially when our parents were out of town. Now, I was unlucky enough to get caught a couple of times. For those of you that weren't, congrats. But if you think about where we are today, let's step back to your teenage years. Imagine you're throwing a party. Party turns into a rager. It's uncontrollable. And then you figure out your parents are coming home. You're like, uh-oh, got to clean up. And most teenagers do a pretty bad job of cleaning things up, right? The kitchen is still dirty. There's a closet full of things that, nobody even knows is supposed to be there. The pool, if you have one, is probably a little dirty still. Parents come home and they're pretty frustrated. Can you please continue cleaning this up? So the teenagers begrudgingly continue cleaning up. Doorbell rings. New guest at the door. And this time the parents invite the guests in. They're like, okay, stop what you're doing. Please invite the guests in, true Asian fashion, and host them. And then party starts again, gets brazier again. And this time the guest looks around, notices how dirty it is, and says, hey, can I help him clean up? Never happens at a real party, especially inside parties. And in Fonty, I'm pretty sure nobody ever offered to help clean up. But the analogy here is pretty simple. Teenagers are all the tech firms. The party, actually the rager, is COVID. If you remember how quickly and how much things were being funded, money was essentially free. People were growing way too fast. COVID ended, and then unfortunately, there were a lot of layoffs, restructuring, reorgs, whatever people called it. But companies were realizing, hey, we need to go prove to our parents, the stakeholders, the shareholders, the investors, where the value is. So they started to clean up. And obviously, the tech firms. I'm in a tech firm. I work in tech. We didn't do a great job. We generally don't. In this matter. And then AI shows up in the same year that these cleanups started. AI shows up and suddenly it's unchecked again. Parties restarted. And if you look at the numbers, even just this week, it's kind of crazy and mind blowing to imagine the kinds of investments that companies are and the valuations they're getting. Because parties started again. So in the middle of all this chaos and uncertainty and FOMO, great INSEAD thing, it's like, what do you do? How do you show up? How do you become the leader that helps? And one other thing that doesn't help in this is that the public markets are playing what I like to call toddler soccer. For those of you that have children and have ever watched kids under, let's say, like 5 play soccer, football, it's pretty funny. They see the ball, they run to the ball. Doesn't matter what position they are. Sometimes the goalie is running after the ball. And you think about it, you try to explain to them, hey, if you hold your position, this will be better for your team. If you're a defender, stay here. But they're like, well, I'm playing football. I see a ball. I should go after the ball. That's the public market. The ball is AI. Every time somebody sees or gets close to the ball, they head right in that direction. And so you see the market just kind of going a little nuts. And so in the middle of all of this change, all of the restructuring, all of the reorgs, and public markets, arguably all of us actually playing toddler soccer because none of us actually know the rules of the game. How do you help teams through this? So I tried something a little bit crazy. Well, when I tried it, it was a little bit crazy. I think it's working now. About a couple of years ago in my team. And I said, hey, in the one-on-ones, said, What if tomorrow you got laid off? What if you lost your job tomorrow? And I want all of you to think about this. Hopefully, that's not your situation right now, but think about it. Why would you be worried? What exactly is the loss that you experience? What are the goals you're heading towards or the obligations you have? Have you thought about, let's say, the number that you need to stop working as much or to have time off or to take time off? Have you actually taken the time to reflect on what this means? Human beings, we don't really like change because change introduces an unknown. Like right now, after the coffee break, if I asked every one of you to get up and move your seats, you'd probably groan and be like, oh my God, why? Simple thing as changing your seat would annoy you. Imagine if somebody lost their job. Now, most of that, though, is because you can't really control what you don't know. But if you shine a light onto the unknown, if you shine a light into, let's say you're in a horror movie, right? It's not really scary when the lights are all on. But when the lights are off, kind of like this, and you can't see where you're going, that unknown, that uncertainty, it creates a little bit of fear. And so when you ask that question, hey, what if this happens? The first few times I had these one-on-ones with my team, they were pretty like, I wouldn't say annoyed, anxious, because I'm their boss. And I'm asking them about layoffs, and they're like, whoa, hold on. You're trying, it's like, no, I'm just trying to be radically transparent with you. I want to know what your plan is. I don't know anything about any layoffs coming up or restructuring, none of that. I just want to know that if it happens, what's your plan? And what was crazy is that radical transparency actually led to psychological safety because we started talking about the things nobody wanted to talk about. Again, 6 years of the change that we've experienced, the toddler software the markets are doing, people want to know and they want to talk and they want somebody to talk to about this. And who better than your own team? Who better than somebody that can maybe guide you? And there was a crazy opportunity. And I remember the first few meetings because the shift in the energy was just unbelievable. The first few meetings, I could feel that everyone was like, whoa, what's going on? And then slowly, we started talking about bigger things. We started talking about more important things. And the what started with radical transparency created the psychological safety. And we started having what we refer to as high performance culture. They were just more excited to come to work. They were asking harder questions. They felt that they could actually start to push against the unknowns and start to innovate in a way that they weren't as afraid anymore. Now, it's not easy to do these things. And oftentimes, when you're leading, you got to ask yourself, what are the different frameworks and what are the different ways that I could lead? What are the different things that I could read about? And I read a lot of books on these topics. And one of the things that I realized is, at least through my career, one of the things that's constantly helped me get through this leadership opportunities is, first of all, leadership's not a title. It's an opportunity. It's a privilege. Secondly, when you see a problem, don't complain. Try to solve it. Kind of like our organizers heard about TEDx and they said, we haven't done TEDx apparently. And the two of them just decided to host TEDx. And that's why we're all here. They led, they're leaders. Simple. They may not have the job title. I may not report to them, but they were leaders. They actually decided to solve something that they saw. Very simple. You find a problem, don't complain. Try to offer a solution. What's crazy, what happens is that as you start doing this, more and more people start to join you. Say, hey, I like the way you're trying to solve this problem. And they step in and they offer their solutions. They start to ask more questions. Now, one of the things that happens, and I think if I reflect on my career personally, when you start to solve these problems and early in your career, you kind of think about it as being the loudest person in the room, being the one that everyone's listening to, being the one that has all the solutions. But as you mature through that, it actually is the exact opposite of what's going to take you to the next step. So as you start to solve those problems, as you start to ask those tough questions, as you start to create a space, you got to step back. So you start, create the space, you step back, and then it starts to multiply the impact. And more people start trying to find solutions instead of just complaining because you created this space for them. Again, does not have to be a title. It's just an opportunity to solve a problem that otherwise maybe does not have a solution. And it's interesting because I'm sure all of you have been in these rooms with people where you feel like either through a title or a role, you need to defer. There's a power dynamic. It's a real power dynamic. In those opportunities, it's sort of up to you to kind of step back and ask yourself, am I leading because it's going to help me get a certain, I think, you said it earlier, Jackson, like a promotion or a status bump or a rank? Or am I leading because I think that there's an opportunity to change something? There's an opportunity to improve something. It's a hard conversation. And I mean, if you think about INSEAD reunions, for example, the 5-year reunion, we're all talking about our jobs and titles. The 10-year reunion, most of us are talking about our families. By our 15-year reunion, we're talking about purpose, work-life balance, like lots of deeper questions. And this is generally speaking, except like it's what happens and it's a maturity curve. But as you start to think about leadership in this constant area of change, there aren't opportunities necessarily in companies where you think, I will stay here for 20 years and in 20 years I will be XYZ title. You have opportunities to lead, you have opportunities to change, you have opportunities to improve things. And what I find as you start to create those opportunities in those rooms, the three things that really work for me. First and foremost is optimizing for intellectual curiosity. Now, my father likes to call this enlightened ignorance. The point that he brings up is if you know you don't know and you're looking for answers, that actually gives you an opportunity to learn more. I call it intellectual curiosity because I want people to constantly be asking questions. One of the things with intellectual curiosity is there's a baseline aptitude. You got to make sure people have the baseline aptitude. For better or for worse, with AI and tech these days, that is easy to get to, but it's definitely something that you need to have to then start asking those tough questions. So it's intellectual curiosity. The second one, which I think we talk about, but as leaders, we have an opportunity to really influence, is humility. Humility is critical nowadays. Again, we're all playing toddler soccer. None of us knows the rules. No single person today actually knows all the rules of what's happening. In fact, all of the predictions are now being rechecked. A lot of these people that were like, "Oh, this is going to happen and jobs are going to be," now they're going, "Oh, actually, no, maybe it's not." So as we're all playing toddler soccer, if you create humility in the space, you offer the opportunity for people to ask questions and lean in. The other thing that's interesting with humility is you give space for those conversations to happen, and then you're able to see how leaned in or how engaged are the people that are participating in these problem solving situations. Because one of the things that I look for when I'm in these rooms where people are trying to solve problems is how engaged, how much do you disagree, for example? I would rather have somebody that has an issue or a problem or disagrees with my point of view than just nods and nods and nods because I maybe have the title and therefore they have to listen. So getting that humility in the space is very critical. And the third thing is it creates collaboration. Now, collaboration in today's day and age, as teams continue to grow in different ways. So for those of you that work in large organizations, I'm sure you're starting to notice that having the largest team may not be the best thing for you. In fact, more and more people want leaner teams that collaborate more with agents and AI, obviously, but also other teams and other companies. And there are smaller and smaller companies hitting valuations that we've never heard of than the very, very large companies that are trying to figure out how do I operate in this environment. So again, leadership, not a title, not the size of your org. It's about what are you doing with these opportunities that you have to solve problems? Simple, asking tough questions and being the one that's asking those questions. So before I end, I want all of you to close your eyes for a second. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to think about a really, really tough boss. A boss that you probably didn't want to head into the office to work with, a situation where you were constantly anxious. You were just feeling like, this is not where I want to be. I'm not growing. I'm being challenged, but not in ways that I want to be challenged. Just a completely uncomfortable situation. Hopefully that's not your situation right now. Keep your eyes closed. Sit with that feeling for a second. Now, I want you to think about your best boss, your best mentor, the best coach, the person you call when you have a question, the person you would reach out to, the boss that pushes you and challenges you, but you want to stay on their team for as long as possible. You can open your eyes now. I could see, I'm sure all of you could feel, your shoulders were really tense in the first opportunity, the first question. And as you thought about that person, you all tensed up. And the minute I switched, I could see people smiling in the audience. Whoa, wow, I could feel it. And the reason I wanted you to do that, again, I have kids, And I notice oftentimes, and generally speaking, kids notice faster than anyone else, the energy. I care about energy. How does the room light up, or how does the room experience your entrance or exit? Are people very happy when you leave the room, or are they really excited when you enter? And when you have, at least for me, when with my kids, they actually know the names of my difficult bosses. They know the names of the teams or bosses where I did not enjoy going to work. And they're 11 and 7. And this happened years and years ago. And they still remember, like, do you remember that person? So as a leader, when you create a space, you need to think about how it not just affects the people you work with on a day-to-day basis. It affects their dinner conversations. It affects their lives. It affects their families. And so you have an opportunity, like I keep saying over and over again, you have to think about leadership as a privilege. And for me personally, my North Star has always been one simple thing. If I could leave you with one simple thing, which is my North Star about leadership, is leave things better than you found them. Thank you.